Commander Vex stood at the helm of the Centauri Enforcement Fleet's flagship, the Celestial Guardian, watching Earth's blue sphere rotate lazily beneath them. Their cloaking technology rendered them invisible to the primitive scanning systems this backwater world possessed. 300 ships strong, they represented the most advanced peacekeeping force in the known galaxy. Analysis complete, Commander. First Officer Mira announced, her silver skin reflecting the soft blue glow of the holographic displays. Earth's military capabilities are precisely as our initial scouts reported. Projectile weapons, primitive nuclear devices, and basic space exploration capabilities. No energy shields, no quantum weaponry, no FTL travel. Vex nodded, mandibles clicking in satisfaction. This would be simple, another primitive world to bring under the protection of the Centauri Enforcement Fleet. They had done this countless times before. Find a developing world, demonstrate overwhelming force, establish a protective presence, and slowly drain the planet of resources while maintaining the illusion of benevolent guardianship. Begin standard intimidation protocol, Vex commanded. Target their largest military installations. Minimal casualties. We want them scared, not martyred. The fleet moved with practiced precision. 300 ships decloaked simultaneously, their massive forms casting shadows over cities across the globe. On the command deck, Vex watched as targeting systems locked onto military bases, government buildings, and strategic infrastructure. "Sir," Tactical Officer Wren called out, his cybernetic eye whirring as it processed data, "we're detecting something unusual. The humans, they're not panicking." Vex turned sharply. "Explain." "No mass evacuations, no military scrambling, no emergency broadcasts. They're just continuing their daily routines." "Impossible." Vex strode to the tactical display. "Show me their military response." The holographic display flickered to life, showing various locations around the globe. True to Wren's report, humans went about their business as if an alien fleet hadn't just appeared in their skies. A street vendor in New York continued serving food. A teacher in Tokyo led her class through a mathematics lesson. A farmer in Kenya tended his crops. "Launch a warning shot," Vex ordered. "Target their largest military base. Show them we're not to be ignored." A beam of concentrated energy lanced down from the flagship, aimed at a military installation in what humans called Nevada. The beam struck. Nothing. It passed through the base as if it weren't there. "Holographic projection," Mira whispered, genuine surprise in her voice. "The entire base is a decoy." Before Vex could respond, a signal cut through their communication system. It was primitive by their standards, but it carried clearly across every frequency. "Centauri Enforcement Fleet." A calm human voice spoke. "We've been expecting you. You should know that what you're seeing isn't real. None of it is. What you think is Earth's military infrastructure, government centers, population distributions, all carefully crafted illusions, maintained for decades for this exact moment." Vex's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. "Trace that signal." "We can't, sir," Wren reported. It's coming from everywhere." The voice continued. "You see, we detected your scout ships years ago. We knew you were coming. We knew what you'd look for. Military bases, decoys, population centers, carefully managed illusions. For generations, we've been preparing, hiding our true capabilities behind a facade of primitive technology." Across the globe, things began to change. The holographic masks fell away, revealing a world far different from what their scouts had reported. Hidden installations emerged, advanced weapon systems powered up, and sophisticated shield generators hummed to life. "What you thought was a primitive species ripe for conquest," the voice continued, "is actually your worst nightmare. A civilization that knew you were coming and had time to prepare. We are humanity's last line of defense, and we've been waiting for you." Vex watched in horror as his fleet's tactical display exploded with new threats. What they had dismissed as primitive radar stations were actually quantum detection arrays. What they had labeled as obsolete satellite networks were sophisticated weapon platforms, and scattered across the globe, millions of ordinary humans, street vendors, teachers, farmers, transformed into a coordinated defense force unlike anything the Centauri had ever encountered. Ready weapons, Vex commanded, but it was too late. The first wave of Earth's true defense systems was already launching, and it became clear that the hunters had become the hunted. In that moment, as his carefully planned invasion began to unravel, Commander Vex learned what countless others would soon discover. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their patience, their ability to plan, and their talent for letting their enemies underestimate them. The real war for Earth was about to begin, and nothing in Vex's centuries of experience had prepared him for what was coming. Sarah Chen's coffee shop in downtown Seattle had been open for exactly 5 years, 2 months, and 13 days. Every morning, she brewed the same artisanal coffees, served the same regulars, and maintained the same pleasant smile. Her customers thought of her as nothing more than a skilled barista with a talent for remembering their orders. None of them knew that her coffee shop sat atop one of Earth's most sophisticated command centers, or that every cup she served contained nanoscopic sensors that monitored the city's technological and biological signatures. Even fewer knew that she was one of the thousands of network guardians scattered across the globe, hiding in plain sight. The morning the Centauri fleet appeared, Sarah served her last cup of coffee for what might be a very long time. As her final customer left, she touched the simple silver ring on her finger, a quantum computer more powerful than all of Earth's visible technology combined. Network node 274 activating. She spoke softly. The coffee shop's warm lighting shifted to a cool blue glow as hidden panels in the walls slid open, revealing banks of advanced monitoring equipment. The entire building structure began to reconfigure itself, transforming from a cozy cafe into a military command center. Status report, Sarah commanded, her voice now carrying the authority of someone who had trained for this moment her entire life. Centauri fleet holding position in low Earth orbit. A synthesized voice responded. Commander Vex is attempting to regroup his forces after our initial revelation. Defensive networks across all sectors are online and awaiting coordination. Sarah smiled as she watched the tactical display materialize in the air before her. Across the globe, thousands of other network guardians were emerging from their cover identities. Teachers, shop owners, farmers, street musicians. Each one commanded a sector of Earth's true defense system, a web of technology so advanced it had to be hidden behind a carefully constructed mask of primitiveness. Network Command, this is Guardian Chen. Sector 7 is combat ready, beginning coordination with adjacent sectors. The response came from a familiar voice, the same one that had addressed the Centauri fleet. Acknowledged, Guardian Chen. The enemy is preparing for a desperate strike. They've lost the advantage of surprise, but they still outnumber our visible forces. Time to show them why that doesn't matter. Sarah's fingers danced through the holographic interface as she linked with other guardians. Marcus in Berlin, whose bookstore concealed a quantum shield generator. Aisha in Lagos, whose food stall was actually a biological weapons research facility. Carlos in Buenos Aires, whose taxi service masked a fleet of autonomous combat drones. Above, the Centauri fleet was regrouping. Their initial shock had worn off, replaced by the arrogance that came from centuries of successful conquests. They still believed superior numbers and technology would win the day. They didn't understand that humanity had spent generations preparing for this moment, developing technologies in secret while maintaining a facade of primitive development. Multiple energy signatures detected, the system announced. They're charging weapons. Let them come. Sarah replied, watching as hidden defense systems across her sector hummed to life. Initiate Protocol Omega. Across Seattle, seemingly ordinary buildings began to transform. The Space Needle's restaurant level split apart to reveal an array of quantum cannons. Pike Place Market's underground levels opened to launch squadrons of advanced fighter craft. Every piece of public art in the city center unfolded into defensive shield generators. Similar transformations were happening in cities and towns across the planet. Humanity's mask was falling away, revealing the true face of a civilization that had sacrificed decades of visible progress to prepare for this very moment. The first Centauri strike lanced down from orbit and met a defense grid unlike anything they had ever encountered. Their energy beams were caught in quantum fields, redirected, and reflected back at their own ships. Their attempts to land troops were met with swarms of microscopic robots that had been hiding in Earth's atmosphere. Their electronic warfare systems crashed against cyber defenses that had been quietly evolving for generations. Sarah watched the battle unfold through the network's shared consciousness. Every Guardian contributed to a unified defense strategy, their actions coordinated with a precision that made them seem like a single organism rather than thousands of individual commanders. Guardian Chen, the network command voice returned. The enemy is adapting faster than expected. They're attempting to isolate and overwhelm individual sectors. Prepare for direct engagement. Sarah's expression hardened as she saw multiple Centauri ships moving toward Seattle. They had identified her sector as a key command node and were determined to eliminate it. What they didn't know was that every network Guardian was trained for exactly this scenario. Acknowledged command. Sector 7 standing firm. Activating counteroffensive measures. She paused, allowing herself a small smile. Time to show them why humanity spent so long hiding its strength. As the Centauri ships descended toward her position, Sarah Chen, former barista, current guardian of humanity's future, prepared to demonstrate just how badly they had underestimated Earth's capabilities. The real battle was about to begin, and she had been preparing for it her entire life. First Officer Mira stood before the tactical display aboard the Celestial Guardian, her silver skin dulled by stress and combat fatigue. What had begun as a routine conquest had devolved into a military nightmare. The display showed hundreds of engagement points across the planet, each one a reminder of how badly they had misread the species. Another squadron lost in the Indian Ocean sector, Tactical Officer Wren reported. They appeared to be engaging a small fishing fleet. The boats turned out to be automated weapon platforms. No survivors. Commander Vex paced the bridge, his mandibles clicking rapidly. There must be a pattern. No species can maintain this level of deception across an entire planet. Find me their command structure. Find me their weakness. But the patterns they sought remained elusive. Every time they thought they had identified a key military installation, it turned out to be a decoy. When they targeted what appeared to be command centers, they found elaborate holograms. The humans fought like no species they had ever encountered, their true strength hidden beneath layers of careful misdirection. On the surface below, Sarah Chen coordinated with other network guardians as they executed their long-planned defense strategies. Her sector had already repelled 3 direct assaults, each time using different tactics that made it impossible for the Centauri to predict their capabilities. Guardian Rodriguez reports success in Operation Mosquito, her system announced. The nanite swarms have infiltrated 15 more Centauri vessels. Sarah nodded, watching as the microscopic machines they had spent decades developing began disrupting the alien ships from within. The Centauri's advanced technology proved vulnerable to these tiny invaders, which mimicked natural Earth phenomena so perfectly that they had gone undetected during the initial invasion. Network Command. This is Guardian Chen. The enemy is attempting to establish a pattern recognition algorithm. Request permission to initiate protocol chaos. The response was immediate. Permission granted. All Guardians, execute protocol chaos on my mark. Across the globe, humanity's defense network began to shift. What had appeared to be a coordinated military response suddenly transformed into something else entirely. Each sector adopted completely different tactics, technologies, and strategies. The carefully maintained illusion of a unified defense shattered into thousands of independent actions that defied any attempt at prediction. In orbit, the Centauri fleet's tactical computers struggled to make sense of the changing battlefield. Their advanced AI systems, designed to identify and counter enemy strategies, found themselves overwhelmed by the apparent randomness of human tactics. "Impossible," Mira whispered, watching as their tactical display became a chaos of conflicting data. "They're fighting as if each sector is a different species with different technologies." Vex slammed his fist against the command console. "Because that's exactly what they want us to think. All this time, we thought we were facing a primitive species hiding advanced technology. But it's worse than that. They're not just hiding their advances, they're hiding their entire civilization structure." On the surface, Sarah received new tactical data through her quantum ring. The Centauri fleet was falling into exactly the trap they had spent generations preparing. Every attempt to understand and counter human tactics only revealed new layers of complexity, new technologies that seemed to operate on completely different principles. Guardian Chen, Network Command's voice, carried a note of satisfaction. "The enemy fleet is beginning to show signs of psychological stress. Their command structure is fracturing as each ship commander attempts to devise their own countermeasures. Prepare for Phase 2. Sarah allowed herself a moment of pride as she watched the tactical display. The Centauri had come expecting to find a primitive species ready for conquest. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that had turned deception itself into an art form, an entire civilization that had sacrificed the appearance of progress to prepare for this very moment. "All Guardians," she broadcast across the secure network, "initiate Phase 2 preparations. Let's show them what humanity can really do when we stop pretending to be primitive." As she spoke, hidden installations across her sector began to power up technologies that even most humans didn't know existed. The real revelation was about to begin, and the Centauri were about to learn that everything they had seen so far, even humanity's apparent advanced technology, was just another layer of carefully crafted deception. Above the Earth, Commander Vex watched as his mighty fleet, the pride of the Centauri Enforcement Force, began to lose not just the battle, but their understanding of what they were fighting. In all his centuries of conquest, he had never encountered a species that had turned strategic deception into such a perfect weapon. The humans hadn't just prepared for war, they had turned their entire civilization into a trap, and his fleet had walked right into it. Commander Vex stood alone in his private quarters aboard the Celestial Guardian, staring at the holographic representation of Earth floating before him. 2/3 of his fleet was either disabled or destroyed. The remaining ships were scattered, their commanders acting independently in desperate attempts to find some way, anyway, to counter the humans' inexplicable defense strategies. "Commander," Mira's voice came through the intercom, "we've completed the deep analysis you requested. You need to see this immediately." In the command center, Mira and Ren had assembled a comprehensive display of everything they'd learned about humanity's true nature. It wasn't just the hidden technology or the coordinated defense network that had defeated them. It was something far more fundamental. "Look at their history," Mira explained, pulling up centuries of human development. Every major technological breakthrough, every scientific advancement. They all stopped just short of their logical conclusion. It wasn't that they couldn't progress further. They deliberately held back, creating the illusion of limitations. Ren's cybernetic eye whirred as he processed the data. Their entire civilization is a masterpiece of strategic deception, even their conflicts with each other. They were never about resources or territory. They were training exercises, preparing their population for external threats while maintaining the facade of a divided species. On the surface, Sarah Chen and the Network Guardians were preparing for humanity's final revelation. The quantum ring on her finger pulsed with new energy as she received the command they had all been waiting for. "All Guardians, Network Command broadcast. The enemy has reached their breaking point. Initialize emergence protocol. Show them everything." Sarah smiled as she activated sequences that had been waiting dormant for generations. Across her sector, the very fabric of reality seemed to shift. The quantum technologies they had been using were just the surface. Now the true extent of human advancement began to emerge. In orbit, the Centauri fleet watched in horror as Earth itself appeared to transform. The atmosphere shimmered as layers of camouflage fell away, revealing vast networks of structures and energy patterns that defied their understanding. What they had thought was a planetary defense system was merely the outer shell of something far more sophisticated. By the first stars, Vex whispered, watching as his tactical displays tried and failed to categorize what they were seeing. They weren't just hiding their military capabilities. They were hiding their entire level of existence. The humans had developed technologies that didn't just advance along expected paths. They had found entirely new directions of scientific progress, concealing them behind a carefully maintained mask of normal development. What appeared to be primitive nuclear power plants were actually zero-point energy harvesters. Their seeming reliance on fossil fuels masked a complete mastery of matter-energy conversion. Guardian Chen, Network Command addressed Sarah. Your sector is designated as the focal point for Demonstration Alpha. Show them why humanity chose to hide its true nature for so long. Sarah's command center hummed with power as she initiated sequences that had never been tested outside of simulations. The quantum computers hidden throughout her sector linked together, creating a computational network that began to alter the very structure of space-time around Seattle. In orbit, Vex watched as a section of Earth's surface seemed to fold in on itself, creating patterns that his ship's sensors couldn't even begin to process. The remaining Centauri vessels that tried to target the anomaly found their weapons having no effect. Not because they were being blocked, but because the very concepts their technology was based on no longer applied in that region of space. Full retreat, Vex ordered, his mighty voice reduced to a whisper, while we still can. But retreat was no longer an option. The humans had spent generations preparing not just to defend themselves, but to ensure that knowledge of their true capabilities never reached the wider galaxy. The Centauri fleet had unknowingly crossed a point of no return the moment they entered Earth's atmosphere. Commander, Mira reported, her silver skin pale with fear, we're detecting similar transformations across the entire planet. The humans, they're not just fighting us. They're using our invasion as an excuse to finally shed their camouflage. Everything we thought we knew about this species, about this planet, it was all part of a deception so deep, so patient, that it shaped their entire civilization. Vex understood then, with perfect clarity, why humans had maintained their elaborate deception for so long. They hadn't been hiding out of fear. They had been hiding because they knew that once they revealed their true nature, the galaxy would never be the same. The invasion of Earth wasn't going to end in defeat for the Centauri enforcement fleet. It was going to end in the complete redefinition of what was possible. The space around Earth had become unrecognizable. Where once there was a simple planetary system, now there existed something that defied conventional understanding. The remaining Centauri ships hung motionless, their crews watching in awe as humanity finally revealed its true form. Sarah Chen stood in what had once been her coffee shop, now a nexus point of technologies that the Centauri had never imagined possible. Through her quantum ring, she could sense the other guardians across the globe, all of them working in perfect harmony as humanity's greatest secret finally emerged. Guardian Chen, Network Command Broadcast. The time has come. Initiate the final protocol. Sarah raised her hand, the quantum ring glowing with impossible energy. Acknowledged. Initiating contact. Aboard the Celestial Guardian, Commander Vex received a transmission unlike anything he had encountered in his centuries of space exploration. It wasn't just a message, it was an invitation to understand. Commander Vex, a chorus of voices spoke as one, the collected consciousness of Earth's network guardians. You came here believing you would find a primitive species ready for conquest. Instead, you found something else entirely. Now, let us show you why. The holographic displays on the Celestial Guardian's bridge transformed, showing not just Earth's present state, but its true history. Humanity had achieved technological enlightenment centuries ago, far earlier than anyone had suspected. But with that enlightenment came a profound realization. The galaxy wasn't ready for what they had become. We saw the pattern. The voices explained as images of distant worlds and civilizations flowed through the display. Every species that rapidly advanced beyond their neighbors became a target. Those that flaunted their power were inevitably challenged. Those that tried to dominate were eventually destroyed. So we chose a different path. Vex watched in amazement as the full scope of human strategy became clear. They had deliberately masked their development, creating an elaborate facade of primitive technology and divided nations. They had turned their entire civilization into a carefully crafted illusion, all to prepare for the moment when the galaxy finally noticed them. Our greatest achievement, Sarah's voice emerged from the chorus, wasn't our technology. It was our patience, our ability to wait, to prepare, to let the galaxy think us weak until we were ready to reveal ourselves on our own terms. The remaining Centauri ships found themselves enveloped in fields of energy that their sensors couldn't even detect. Not hostile, but protective. Humanity's first gift to their would-be conquerors. We could have destroyed your fleet the moment you arrived. The voices continued. We could have prevented you from ever finding Earth in the first place. But that wasn't our purpose. We needed someone to find us, to trigger our emergence. And you, Commander Vex, gave us that opportunity. In orbit and on the surface, the last layers of humanity's deception fell away. The Earth itself seemed to pulse with energy as hidden structures and systems activated, revealing a civilization so advanced that its technology was indistinguishable from natural law. Your invasion forced us to reveal ourselves, Sarah explained, her voice now reaching not just the Centauri fleet, but broadcasting across the galaxy. But not as conquerors or destroyers. We emerge as guardians, as teachers, as those who learn the hardest lesson of all. True power lies not in domination, but in the wisdom to know when and how to use it. Commander Vex stood from his command chair, finally understanding. You weren't hiding out of fear, he said. You were waiting for the right moment to change everything. Yes, the voices confirmed, and now that moment has come. The galaxy will never be the same, but not because of conquest or war, because humanity is finally ready to share what we have learned about power, patience, and the true meaning of advancement. The Centauri fleet received new data streams, knowledge that would transform their civilization. Not weapons or tactical advantages, but understanding. The same wisdom that had led humanity to hide its true nature for so long. Sarah Chen looked out over her transformed sector, remembering all the years of maintaining her cover, of serving coffee while guarding some of humanity's greatest secrets. It had been worth it. The galaxy was ready now, ready for what humanity had become. The age of deception is over. Network Command broadcast one final time. The age of understanding begins. In orbit, Commander Vex gave the order to stand down, not in surrender, but in acceptance of a new reality. The Centauri enforcement fleet had come to conquer a primitive world. Instead, they had become part of something far greater, humanity's first step into revealing their true place in the galaxy. The last line of defense had served its purpose. Now it would become the first line of understanding, as humanity finally stepped forward to take its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as teachers, showing the galaxy a better way to advance.